Should be topic number 2. Quote, whenever Africans put their foreign religion before their race, they are automatically traitors. Agree or disagree? This came with a link that's taking us to YouTube. So we'll watch this video and then we'll discuss it.
Is that whenever Africans put their foreign religions before their race, they are automatically traitors. So you find Africans who are Muslims put Islam and put their Arab co-religionists before other Africans. And Africans who are Christians, they do the same thing. They put their Christianity before. No one was born Christian or Muslim. And what the Arabs and Europeans have done is that they have used their Christian and Islamic religions to culturally manipulate and control African people. So for example, Christian name, there's no such thing as a Christian name. It's European names, cultural imperialism using religion. Muslim name, there's no such thing as a Muslim name. There are Arab names. Muta was talking about this earlier. So you have Africans getting rid of their African names and taking European names and Arab names under the guise of being Christian or Muslim. We must practice our African religions, be it voodoo or whatever, whereby we retain our cultural and mental identity as Africans. Because religion of the racist enemies is a mental tool of enslavement for our people. And finally, where that is concerned, Gaddafi is no leader for me as an African, as a Marcus Garvey man, a Pan-Africanist. Gaddafi, like Nasser, who was his idol, was a Pan-Arabist. And when the other Arabs refused for him to succeed as Nasser's successor, as the #1 Pan-Arabist, he turned to our African people to try to use our people. And his intention, just like the Europeans, their rivals, was to control and conquer Africa. A lot of
I went a little bit over with that clip, but you guys heard what Mutabaruka had to say about religion and race and so-called Christianized names, which is just European names, etc. Shout out to Sister Raw, by the way, who says greetings in the chat. Thanks for coming through, Sister Raw. Trigavi 262 plus asks, is that Mutabaruka? Yeah, it's Mutabaruka speaking. Juana, what say you to what you just heard?
I don't think that was Muda. Kokut. I don't think that was Muda. I think that somebody speaking. Well, it wasn't Muda though. It wasn't Muda. But but shout out to Muda. Shout out to Muda.
Muda or I Can Fire, to be honest. But go ahead.
Yeah. Shout out to Muda Baruka, a great man out of Jamaica. But I don't think that was him just now. But I do believe that we as a community, when it comes in terms of spirit practicing our spirituality, we put down the whole idea of race. So race becomes a non-factor in terms of how we practice spirituality. And maybe this is a better argument for Trigger Happy and Razuli, because they're religionist guys. But for me personally, I think that we put down that argument. But I don't say that they are automatically traitors, because that people need to really know context. They really need to have some understanding that what they are doing is traitorous, is treacherous in terms of they have to understand background and history. And many people don't practice religion based off of history and background. So getting into the name calling sometimes, I don't think that is beneficial for us. I think that with us, our issue is confusion, clarity, and understanding. And when it comes to religion, many of us suffer from confusion, understanding, explanation, all these kinds of things, because we have been taught religion in the Western world and in Africa as if we were children. So context have been taken out of the mind of black folks in terms of religion. They don't understand context. So if you look at China, the Buddha, even though the Buddha was created in India, when the Buddha or when that religion reached China, you see a fat Chinese face in, because the Chinese would not allow Asian or Asian version of Buddha to exist within their society, because the Chinese understood context. In Africa, Africa is so far out of context that they would permit a, a white savior, a white savior inside their society. They wouldn't change the image of the Jesus figure or a savior figure into the people who actually exist or predominate that society. This is where we don't understand context, because we've been colonized to me to a worse degree than in Chinese or any other culture. And I think that this is our issue at times, and we need to be properly educated. Also, I would also say this for my brothers who are voodooists and people who practice African cultures like Erzuli them and Trigger Happy them. I understand that they only could do what they could do. But in my country, you see the 7-day Adventists, the white guys who come to these countries to sell their religion, to expose the whole black world to their religion. I think that our African religionists need to get on their ball in propagating their faith and showing why our faith is superior to all other faiths. Just like the Christians have done it, just like the Muslims have done it. I think that we need to start proselytizing our religions more out to the world. And I understand that the idea is money. Money, the African religions don't have the money necessary to send out people to proselytize to the world in terms of why our African religions and spiritualities is better. But I think that would give us, the black world, a whole lot of context, because right now black people in black countries see African religions as evil, demonic. The first thing that must be done is when we must disabuse our own people with that idea that our religions are demonic and evil. And then the second thing is to propagate the idea of why our religions are better placed and more properly contextualized than the Christian faith, than the Muslim faith, than all these foreign religions. So we have a lot of work to do that has not been done yet. And we need to catch up that there's a gap between Christianity, Muslims, and our actual faith. And I think our African religions, and I think that proselytization around the world, I think that we need to make up that deficit. So I would speak to the people like Erzuli and Trigger Happy them, who are big on these kinds of things and talking about these things, to close the gap. That's your work. Because you know where I started with it. But that's your work. That's not my work. But I'll stop there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Yeah, that piece made me have a couple of questions as well. I'll get to it in a second. Erzulism is out there in the chat. He said the Buddha is black, the black Asiatic man. Trigger 262 Plus says religions to me exist for the purposes of creating a geopolitical unit. We have to combat that. He says, I agree with that, Buana. Some argue people shouldn't proselytize African spiritual practices. We have to do that as a requirement if we want our people to practice it again. Lastly, Trigger says, also African spiritual practices should be more unified if they want to combat Abrahamic practices. Abrahamic practices are more unified than our own, and that's why we lose. Azuliism says, close the gap for what? Azuliism, you got to come and explain yourself a little bit there.
Because you in a competition, and you as a spiritualist and a voodooist practitioner, you are in a competition with the Christians and the Muslims, and you want the best for your people around the world, and that's the vehicle that you decide to use. So I think that that's the competition that you in. That's the race that you in. So if you want to win that race, you gotta get in the race.
I like what Bakari says here. He says foreigners' religions don't automatically make them a traitor because that's all they know. I could actually agree with that. If it's true that that's all they know, but like I said last week, to be on the continent, to be at ground zero, even though these foreigners came with some strong juju, you had your own ancient juju amongst your people. I still think you should be looking into that. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I've come to the realization of I might not know what's going on in that spiritual realm, but if I'm going to talk anything about spiritual or spirit, I'm going to talk about what my ancestors talked about. I'm going to completely repeat what they talked about as far as that goes, because why would I talk about someone else's ancestors and their stories, right? There was something I intended to bring up here, and I can't think of it, but luckily we got Brother Bakari joining us. Bakari, how are you this week?
I'm good. What's going on? My bad. What's going on? What's going on, Buana chat?
What's going on, Uncle B? Let's get on.
I think it's something. I think it's some stuff that we forget when we talk about this, right? Is they didn't just give us a religion. Them motherfuckers, they came in and gave us an ass whooping, right? So I had a friend from Cameroon. His name was Bolain, and we used to hold this conversation all the time. And I said, so why do people in like him, he would say he's Christian, but he would always talk about African gods. I said, why do y'all practice religion? He was like, the same reason we can speak their language. They came in with their military, we were divided, they fought together, and they kicked our ass. And he was like, so for the most part, people did things based on, because they were still like splintered, I guess, fractured, didn't come together. Did things out of survival as well, so they can live. So what I say, that makes them a traitor automatically. Not automatically, it doesn't make them a traitor, but it can make them a traitor when you begin to look down on your own stuff because of this. And on this part of the world, right, a lot of people, that's what I was talking about when I said don't automatically make them a traitor because they don't know, is most of the black people in this part of the world. A lot of us just, a lot of black people just don't know. They really don't know. You find a lot of black, they're going to argue that Christianity is African. They're going to argue that the people in the Bible is black because that's what they know. They really don't know they really don't know much about the African gods. I get them out.
Appreciate that, Bakari.
Yeah, and the shortfall, the shortfall is, like I say, people who know better, people who have been introduced even from a young age to African gods and African religions, who know better. They have a work to do. They have a work to do. You know, when Joseph Smith was creating this fantasy religion and going to Utah and create that narrative in Utah where you have all those people practicing under that faith. And then you have what's the other guy for Scientology? I forget his name now. L. Ron Hubbard created his fantasy. You know, you have all these people that believe come up under one belief. I'm asking, where is the African spirituality, the African world? I guess Malachi Z. York them was trying to do it, and they went into their nonsense. I'm thinking the African practitioners and spiritualists, you know, in particular the same character right here who calling us a bunch of Negroes. These guys need to get on their grind and they need to get on their work. I understand Erzuli is clearly defining the problem. I'm saying that if you could define the problem, then you have to understand the solution to the problem. So you must get on your work in terms of fixing what the shortfalls are and fixing the issues since you seem to know better. If you know better, explain to people how to practice and do better. This is the work that must be done. This is the work that must be done for the African practitioners and spiritualists and things of that nature. You all understand and could clearly define the problems and all the shortfalls. Therefore, you all should know the solutions and the remedies to resolve the issues and problems. Get on your work. Get on your work. Don't criticize the people for being ignorant. Get on your work. You know, but I'll stop there. I'll stop there. I'll stop there.
Hey, but I'm gonna piggyback off. You don't criticize people for not knowing, right? But for me, I come from somewhere. Even one of my friends that knew that she always talk about the spiritual. I'm like, y'all know how I feel. Like I gave the spirits up. I'm just being honest. But I wasn't raised knowing anything about any African gods. I wasn't raised having to go to church either. I was raised seeing black people come together and build stuff. That's literally what I saw people do. And I know I offended some people one time, and I asked if we practice African spirituality, is that gonna make us take our community back? Right? If for me, if the God hasn't put inside of you to control your own existence, to control what you can, and take your community, if that's not already in you, it doesn't make a difference. This is just my opinion. It doesn't make a difference what spirit you're talking about, you praying to, you believing in, if it's not making you do anything. Because if the African spirituality is going to get us where we need to be, I need to see some people out there when we talking about controlling the community and taking the community, buy black challenge, get foreigners out the community. Don't shop with these people. I need to see some of them out there telling us how, you know, that practicing African spirituality is what showed them the way. I'm not against anybody practicing whatever they choose to practice against African spirituality by no stretch of the imagination. I would say if I did practice anything, I was, I don't really practice nothing, but I've studied voodoo. I know some African gods, but I just came to a point where I looked in the mirror and I'm like, it's me. So whatever God that is in me, and it got to be an African God because I'm an African man, make me want to take the community. I want to see other people who believe in all these Africans who want to say, let's do this spiritual stuff. Let's make sure these spirits making you control our existence, control the things that we can absolutely control our economics, control the businesses, let's put houses, let's purchase these houses in our communities together to give a low income housing, help get our homeless off the street. Let's go out here and feed. Let's build our own community centers. Uh, that's what I want to see. The people who want the spirits. That's what I want to see them come and jump on that bandwagon and do. Because, like I said, I didn't have to go to church. My mama tried to make me. I never forget the argument. They wouldn't argue. My daddy said, "They ain't got to go no church if they don't want to go to church. Church ain't gonna do. Church ain't gonna do nothing when they get grown. When he get older, if he want to go to church, he go to church. But you don't force him to go to no. You don't force your kids to go to no church. I went to church on Easter because I knew they was gonna have a party after with cake and ice cream and food. That was my one time a year because we were gonna have cake, ice cream, and food. So I was gonna be involved during Easter when I was little. I wasn't raised talking about. I knew people who they said knew voodoo and practiced the voodoo, but I wasn't raised knowing any of that either. But I was raised knowing we need to build a community, knowing what we need to control. I was raised being part of a community that we built. On that note, I yield the mic.
Give me 100 Badabakaris. Give me 100 Kokus. And watch. Give me a couple of names too, cause they scientific. And watch me work. Watch me work. This is what I'm trying. Well, you try to you try to reproduce yourself. Try to reproduce yourself. And for me personally, I don't give a damn about at this point. I don't give a damn about the numbers. I don't give a damn about the numbers. I give a damn about the mentality. And Hitler changed it. Hitler was one man who changed the entire Western world for right or for wrong. Just give me 100, give me 100 Butterflies and 100 Gokus and a couple Onis and watch me work. That's all I need to do. That's why I don't give a damn about the numbers. I'm trying to recreate these kinds of mentalities. But needless to say, I'll stop.
So, Bawana, let me ask you, what if you had 100 Kokus, 100 Onis, 100 me, and 100 who else, right? And let's say out of that 100, they didn't practice no spirituality, but they got boots on the ground. They able to galvanize people to say we're gonna have community-owned businesses. And you actually see them doing, oh, we got this washateria over here. This is our first step. We own this washateria. Now we got this corner store right here. Now we just bought a couple of houses that we ourselves are fixing up. And what if they say they don't have no spirituality, no nothing. It's just them.
It
Would that
means
be a
nothing.
problem?
Me personally, but Bakari, me personally, it means nothing to me. Personally. However, I understand that some of our brothers and sisters, in particular, are led by these kinds of religious, spiritual matters and things of that nature. For our history, it's something well, fortunately or unfortunately, that's something that we have to respect. We are spiritual people, Brother Bakari. Me and you understand certain things on a certain level, but our people have very, what you say, immersed on. We have embraced this whole spirituality business. We are very big on that, and to ignore that is to your peril. So I respect these things. However, the underlying thing in all these things is the men and women who are capable to getting the job done. So I wouldn't dismiss the spiritual aspect ourselves because I understand how big these ideas are with our people, and I would never reject them. However, as Marcus Garvey say, the women, the women used to get the shit done. Unfortunately, in his organization, they ain't theoretical. I won't get the stuff done. So as long as I know you have the Kokus of the world who gonna actually do the grunt work, you have the Brother Bakari them who gonna do the grunt work. We could philosophize and we could theorize and all that good stuff. But the brothers them who are willing to do the grunt work and the sisters the daily grunt work, let's get that job done. And everything else will take care of itself. We could dance and do all the spiritual rain dances and pouring libations and all that afterwards. But the brothers who are willing to do the actual work itself, give me them any day. Any day. I'll stop there, brothers.
I'm gonna say this then, then I'm gonna be done. I agree. Give me somebody who's gonna do the work. Now let me say what trigger happened. I understand the culture. So now let me explain why I say I got away. Because everybody I've ever, like I said, I've studied certain things on my own. I don't study like I used to, but I have studied certain things on my own. But you see a lot of people. I heard somebody mention Malachi York. I hope didn't nobody call him doctor, but I heard somebody mention him, who was a scamming pedophile, right? And he used everything he could to get control of people. And these crazy people still out here, right? Some of these people still out here talking about he levitates. He get out of prison whenever he want, what dimension you're living in and stuff like that. So my thing is I met so many people hustling and scamming Black people, or heard them talking about that. That's also a big part of the reason that I'm like, oh man, these people out here just talking, because they'll talk and they probably, because I want to listen to somebody who knows something that I don't know, what I can learn. But then you sit and listen, and if you truly listening to people, you can tell when they're hustling. That's why I said the guy who did the damn museum in California, if anybody ever truly just listened to him, instead of getting excited, instead of being okay with some of the good stuff he said, listen to, you can tell they hustling and scamming. And that's my problem with some of the. So if somebody knows something about the African spirituality and they can really teach me and can really show me some things, bam. I don't even mind learning, but it's so many hustlers and scammers that just kind of like push me away from a lot. So that's why I say the thing what I say about, it really don't matter to me, but those spirits should have you, your spirituality should have you wanting to build something for yourself though. Now I'm done.
Yeah, this conversation actually ties in a little bit with the previous, the previous problems about Gavi talking about dressing and dress codes. One of the things I also mentioned this on Shoot the Breeze a few weeks back, is you have to, in the world that we live in, you gotta show and prove. And like a few of you said here tonight, I've said it before in the past, you got to show and prove. You have to show where your God or gods is where it's at. The reason why you get guys like Creflo Dollar and them are just a long line of grifters from the church. But a part of why that whole shtick works is because the adherents, the people who come to church, they want to see that their spiritual leader is prospering due to that faith. And so if you want people to really engage in this African spirituality, I agree with Buana. Those of you who are inclined, who have studied, who are still on that path, you guys should be doing the work. You guys should be out here, spreading the word, so to speak, on, African spiritual systems. And the practitioners, the heavy practitioners, the ones who people turn to when things are bad, you guys got to change up your game now. It's time to make this shit have some bite to it now. That's the only way we're going to get our people back. And if you want to say African spirituality equals the culture, and so to regain your African spirituality, and I get that, is to regain your culture. Well, I'm all for getting back your culture. But to get people to get to back to this shit, when you have this machine, this apparatus called the Abrahamic religion, right, with all their ability to punish and reward and eternity of suffering and all that kind of stuff. Come on, man. You got to step this thing up now. This thing has to matter, and it has to matter in every part of people's lives. Because say what you want, that's what the Abrahamic religions do. They got them folks, another grifter, Vicky Dillon, right? Selling holy oils and ointments and all this kind of shit. Like, they have these things that they do, right? But you got to tie it to something. You have to tie it to something heavy, Anyway, does anyone else want to add any last thoughts to this prompt here? All right. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 tonight. This is where Cam Javerse, if you're listening, this is where you come on through, brother.